Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's another premium prediction video, and it's an absolute blockbuster matchup, an entertaining one to say the least. Carlos Alcaraz versus Gael Monfils, and there's 17 years difference between the two players, but Gael Monfils did beat Carlos Alcaraz in Cincinnati. Alcaraz, albeit wasn't looking himself, but Monfils played some really good tennis. So interesting to see if Monfils is able to replicate that type of form and performance and actually put pressure on Alcaraz, or Alcaraz carry through his really good form in this Asian swing so far after winning in China already, to then come forward from Beijing to Shanghai and potentially take the title here as well. Let me know in the comment section below who you're picking and why. We're going to get into it as always in detail. We're going to look at the match flow graphics that we have here. Thank you to them as always, as we partnered with them. I'll give you guys a couple of quick nuggets of information and also go to the win predictor. Then we will go through each player's form, talk about how they've looked so far and who they've played, and then ultimately I will go through it tactically and technically, break it down strategically, and give you guys my prediction. Before we do get into it, though, remember to hit that like button, do subscribe if you're new, and do leave a rating and review if you're listening on a podcast platform. We appreciate each and every one of you. Honestly, you guys are absolute legends. Okay, so Carlos Alcaraz is the most informed player right now. But Yannick Sinner in the China Open final in an absolute thriller, and he's looking very good this week as well. For Gael Monfils, he hasn't maybe had the results he would have liked since that Cincinnati win against Alcaraz. Some potentially disappointing losses, but a really good win in the last round against Ugo Humbert, who actually had made the final in Tokyo against Arthur Fils, and he was playing some really good tennis, Humbert. So that's a really good win, I think, for Monfils to be a young, hungry, athletic, powerful Frenchman. Of course, one of his compatriots in really good fashion in the end. The head-to-head is 2-1 in favor of Carlos Alcaraz, and that one loss, of course, as I mentioned, was in Cincinnati a few weeks back. In terms of coaches, Gael Monfils has Mikhail Tillstrom in his corner, Carlos Alcaraz 1, Carlos Ferrero. The win predictor for match flow is saying 80% in favor of Alcaraz. Not a massive surprise, I have to say, but I'm trying to think whether that is a massive surprise. No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is, given the current form of both players as well. ATP Masters, of course, tournament in Shanghai, fourth round. So it's a round of 16 matchup for a place in the quarterfinals. And let's get into Alcaraz's form. So you can see an 84% win rate for the year so far. And we know that he won Wimbledon, Roland Garros, and also Indian Wells this year, on top of winning that China Open title in Beijing only last week. Interestingly, he's the only player to ever win a Masters 5, sorry, not Masters 500, ATP 500 tournaments on all three surfaces, by the way, which, I didn't manage to talk about because we didn't get to do a post-match analysis for it, for that match. But yeah, look, he's a phenomenal player, as we know, an all-court player, and he will be a generational talent and one of the greats by the looks of it. He's already won 4 Grand Slams. In terms of kind of recent form, Petri, Perikard, Griekspoor, Khachanov, Medvedev, Sinner in Beijing. There's some good wins there, especially Medvedev and Sinner back-to-back. That's not easy. And then he's got Shang and Wu, who he beat in the second and third rounds of this Shanghai Masters tournament. Jerry Shang has been playing some really good tennis. I was expecting it to be a little bit close, I'm not going to lie. I thought he would potentially be able to push Alcaraz in maybe one of the sets. Wasn't quite to be for him. He's still very young and raw. 19 years of age, actually younger than Carlos Alcaraz. And Yannick. Carlos is just so well-rounded, managed to, he managed to navigate that really well. And then Wu Yibing, it says they're ranked 564, but we know he plays, way above that ranking. Wu Yibing is not an easy matchup right now. He's been playing some really good tennis, so I think he beat Arthur Fils as well recently in the first round, who just come off winning the Tokyo title. So he's playing some good tennis, and hopefully he's able to stay fit for a long period of time and start working his way up the rankings again, because I think he's a top 20 player, I would say. Is he top 10? Maybe not, but I think you could safely say that he's good enough to be in the top 20. I would argue anyway. In terms of other bits for Alcaraz and his form this year, I mean, he's been really good. Hard courts has been a pretty good surface for him. 85% win rate. Grass has been the best at 89%. There's a smaller sample size when it comes to grass, right? So there's more potential for him to have a high percentage win rate on that. But the most impressive one, I think, is the top 10 wins, right? 13 matches, 9 wins, and 4 losses. And that to me has been, the standout stat. I think he's just been so good. And what's even better is, I think, against top 5 opponents, he's only lost to one player. And once, I think he's 10-1 on, I could be wrong, but I think that's right. And the only person that he lost to was Novak Djokovic, of course, in the Olympic final. So, yeah, really, really impressive, right? In terms of Monfils, he has had a pretty good year. I mean, it hasn't been incredible, but semi-finals in Mallorca and also Qatar as well. You can see there that dark green square when he played Alcaraz in Cincinnati. That was a third round matchup, and he beat him there. Also beat Hurkacz, who's another top 10 player, in the second round of Indian Wells. So he's played 9 top 10 players, and he's got 2 wins from that, 7 losses. His win rate for the year is 55%, which is modest. On hard courts, it's at 57%, so a little bit above his average. So look, I mean, he's had a pretty good year. As I said, a couple of semi-finals, some round of 16 results as well. But this has been a good run. Jama, Baez, and Umber. I mean, Baez is 25 in the world, Umber is 18 in the world. So Monfils is, playing well above his ranking of 46 right now. And that's not surprising because he's been a top 10 player in the world before, of course. But this is, I think, for me, this has been a pretty good year. And he's definitely having a bit of an Indian summer, that's for sure. And that's good to see because he's such a great entertainer. And he's been one of the most exciting talents on tour for a number of years, right? For whatever, nearly 20 years now. In terms of tactically, look, I'm going to be honest, and Monfils said it after his recent win against Umber, and they asked him, look, you're going to beat him again. He said, no, I think he's going to crush me. And I think he said that obviously a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but also I think he realizes that Alcaraz was off in that Cincinnati match. Now, Monfils was very good with his variety and just managed to actually stop, I think, Alcaraz's rhythm in that match. And that's something that Alcaraz is very good at doing himself normally. He made a lot of errors, I think, Alcaraz as well. And Monfils was hitting really big from the back of the court, mixing it up, with the slice, with the drop shot, coming to the net. Served pretty well as well, returning well, just really dialed in. And we know how athletic he can be as well, making Carlos play an extra ball when he didn't want to because he wasn't playing particularly well at that point in Cincinnati. And look, I mean, this is a different Carlos, I think, and I don't see any specific facet of Monfils' game that is actually better than Carlos's right now, anyway. We look at serve. Maybe you could argue that Monfils' serve could be a little bit more potent than Carlos's, but I don't even think that's the case. Second serve, I think Carlos is better. Then if you look at return, I think, again, Alcaraz has got a better return. If we're looking at forehand to forehand, and Monfils can hit some rockets on the forehand, but as can Alcaraz. And I feel like Alcaraz has more variety on the forehand and more effective variety on the forehand, right? I mean, hitting a forehand slice out of nowhere when it doesn't really do much is not good variety. It's just you're changing up the pace, and that's great. But actually, if it doesn't have any effect on the opponent, then it's useless. And I feel like Alcaraz, in terms of shot selection, when he's dialed in, he has that shot selection maturity that makes him so incredibly hard to play against. For Monfils, I think he's had issues with shot selection his whole career. I think it's fair to say. Backhand to backhand, Monfils' backhand is pretty solid, but again, I think Alcaraz outguns him in that department. And at the net, Monfils has got good hands, but Alcaraz is exceptional on the net. Great touch, drop shot, lob. I think he again is better in those attributes than Monfils. And in terms of athleticism, I still think Monfils is up there. But at his age right now, I think Alcaraz edges him in that department too. So look, I mean, I think for Monfils to win this match, I think simply put, he's going to need Alcaraz to have another off day like he did in Cincinnati. And if he doesn't have an off day, I don't think it's in his hands because I think Monfils, if he maxes out, I don't think that's enough against a 8 out of 10 Alcaraz, if I'm being honest. That's how I see it right now, anyway. In saying that, one thing I will mention, and I mentioned this to someone else, I think it was actually Steve Flink at Wimbledon, I think he agreed with me, is that Alcaraz can be prone to an off day on the forehand. Now, that might sound crazy because of how potent his forehand tends to be, right? And for the most part, it is. It's an incredible weapon, and he utilizes it really well. But he does have the odd match or odd set or two in a match sometimes where it's not working. I think that happened against Monfils in Cincinnati, and it frustrates him. And I think sometimes he's almost got too many ways of hitting it that he gets stuck trying loads of different things when it's not working, and it maybe confuses. I'm not sure exactly what happens. Obviously, I'm not an elite coach, but all I can say is that he can have off days or off sets on that forehand side, and it can break down. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, it's very noticeable, really noticeable. And I think he had a similar issue against Medvedev last year at the US Open, against Zverev this year as well. And I think what it might be is that if people go super hard into that forehand side early doors and he's not able to defend, well, I think if he feels like he's getting outgunned in that forehand to forehand exchange, then he starts going for more and more and more and starts missing more and more. And then he kind of starts going a bit more conservative, goes the other way, and then it's too short or he's not really timing it as well. And he struggles to find rhythm. And that can happen with most players. I don't think anyone is exempt from it, but it's something that I have seen, and I do think he's more prone to an off forehand day than someone like a Sinner. And that's not saying much because I feel like Sinner's the only player I can say that's maybe less prone to it. But that's something that Monfils, if he can see Alcaraz is struggling a little bit, then he needs to really put his foot on the gas. He needs to be opportunistic in Monfils because he may be outplayed for big chunks of this match, but if he's able to really be clinical in the big moments, then he could find himself in a tiebreak. He could find himself a breakup, for example, even though he's had to save 5. That's possible. And we saw, for example, in that Beijing final with Alcaraz and Sinner, that Sinner was he was 5-2 down in that first set, came back to a tiebreaker. Alcaraz had a match point at 40-30 in one of the games. Sorry, not match point, a set point, didn't take it. Then he had set points at 6-4, didn't take it either of those. And Yannick went on to win that set in a tiebreak, in a long tiebreak. So it's possible for these guys to come back. And yes, Monfils at the moment is not of the caliber of a Sinner, but I think what that highlights is that, one, it's not over and you can fight to the last point of momentum has a weird way of sometimes shifting, right, in strange moments. And on top of that, I think Monfils should take from that actually Alcaraz let him off the hook there a little bit as well. Wasn't as clinical as maybe you might expect. And Alcaraz sometimes can give you a little bit. And it's okay. He's giving you an inch, but you almost need to take that inch and then steal a mile from him instead, right? You need to really push that inch as much as possible and take it as far as you can go to give yourself as much of a cushion and advantage as possible to put yourself in the best place to come out on top against Alcaraz, because he's a beast. He's got so many different ways of playing and so many different tools at his disposal So if you're Monfils, it's all about managing the match and managing the big points really well. And that's not something he's been great at in his career, I have to be honest, but he has shown glimpses of it and flashes of it. So I'm hoping he can do so against Alcaraz and run it close. I'm going to go for Alcaraz in straight sets, though. I don't see Monfils taking it. So I could see a tiebreak potentially, but I just think that Alcaraz is going to be too strong for him. And I'd like to be proven wrong and for it to go to 3 sets, but I don't see Monfils winning anyway. That's my prediction anyway. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. Who do you think is going to win and why? Could we see a repeat performance from Monfils, or is that just wishful thinking? Or will Alcaraz completely steamroll him? Let me know your comments and your thoughts. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you in the next video.